Hello everyone, my name is PixelRiffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. In today's episode, we're going to go to the Nether. And we're going to do that with the help of these gold leggings that I just found in the chest with the skeletons. But the Nether can be a bit of a dangerous environment. So before we go, I'm going to make sure that I've got rid of any levels that I want to spend on enchantment. So I'm going to disenchant these boots that only got Unbreaking 3 and see if we get anything better from the table this time. Just Unbreaking 3 again. I'm going to check books to see if they get anything good. Nothing I want immediately. So maybe I'll unenchant this pickaxe and have another attempt at that. That's showing me Fortune 2 right now. The axe also only has Unbreaking 3, so let's see if we can shoot for something like Efficiency on that. Oh, that's giving us Fortune 2. I don't really want Fortune on an axe. You know what, we'll enchant a book with something basic and we'll re-roll the table and see what we get. Fortune 2 is coming up again. But now these boots have Depth Strider 3, which is something I was looking for, and Blast Protection 4 actually is not too bad. We might as well go with that. Unbreaking 3 is showing up for the pickaxe and the axe. We're going to try that on the pickaxe, just Unbreaking 3. You know, it doesn't seem quite so bad when we've got a skeleton spawner and we can come back and get experience levels whenever we want. But snazzy as I look in my new diamond helmet and boots, we're actually going to keep this iron equipment on and we're going to put on these golden leggings for our first trip to the Nether. We're going to leave our diamond armor in here for now, and we might even bring some of our less valuable tools. I might even leave my diamond pickaxe at home because that one feels harder to replace. My other diamond pickaxe and my diamond axe are going to go in here as well, since they cost 3 diamonds each, so they're the more valuable ones to lose, but the sword is probably the best weapon I have with sharpness 4, and the shovel only costs 1 diamond, so that's not too bad. Now from this chest we are going to grab the 14 obsidian that I dug up a little while ago, and we're going to go down to the basement to grab some quick building blocks. I have a ton of cobblestone that I've been saving up from various mining trips where I went to go and find iron, and for our first trip to the Nether I think it's important to bring 2 things. Number 1, some gold armor, because there are some creatures in the Nether which are hostile to you unless you are wearing gold. And the second thing is a bunch of building blocks so that we can protect our Nether portal on the other side once we have built it. We're going to start by building the portal frame out here, 4 blocks long, pillar up 4 blocks from one corner, go along 2, and build the other pillar on the other side. You'll end up with a portal where the outside frame is 4 blocks long and 5 blocks high, but the interior space here is a 2x3. Back in our basement, we're going to drop off anything else that we don't need. I might just leave this furnace in here for later, and we're going to find some flint so that we can craft a flint and steel, because these Nether portals are frames of obsidian which need to be lit by fire. And right-clicking inside the frame to start a fire will light the portal, which begins to emit this ominous purple glow. And without further ado, we're going to go through to the Nether and see what awaits us there. Okay, we are in a basalt delta biome and we need to crouch immediately because there are magma blocks and lava around. This is a pretty rough place to start in the Nether, actually. You can see lava descending from the ceiling immediately, lava all around us here as well. The first thing to do is make sure that no lava is falling directly on you so that you don't end up dying in lava immediately, and it looks like all of that stuff is falling safely over there. There are magma cubes hopping up and down in this area, so we need to be a little careful we don't run into those. But I think the first thing we want to do is make sure this portal is protected. Make sure we have some cobblestone around this, and that's going to serve 2 purposes. Number 1, it's going to act as a marker, making sure that we can see where this is, because the cobblestone is going to stand out since it's not a material native to the Nether. The other thing is you may sometimes see ghasts floating around in the Nether. They are the giant white floating creatures, and if they spot you, they can shoot an explosive fireball in your direction, which can break these portal frames and switch off your way back. If you keep a flint and steel with you, you can always relight the portal, but it can be a little bit tricky, and the cobblestone will provide a useful shelter against those ghasts. So taking a quick look around, we are sort of surrounded by lava here, which is not the best start we could have had, but we can always build some cobblestone bridges in the lava to make sure the lava blocks are replaced and slowly make this area a little safer to traverse. In this direction, however, it looks like the basalt delta environment continues, and it's kind of treacherous for us right now. So we're going to strike out in the other direction and make for this terrain over here. This looks like a Nether wastes, and so my first objective is going to be bridging over to that to make sure that we can explore the Nether a little more safely. Checking around for magma cubes before we do this, I'm going to start a cobblestone staircase that's just going to go along one and up one to make sure we can get to this plateau over here. And this is why it was worth bringing a lot of those cobblestone blocks with us, because we had no idea what kind of terrain we were going to encounter. Now we've created that bridge, one last thing we're going to do before we leave our Nether portal behind, and that is to take the coordinates to make sure that we know how to get our way back. attack. And then we can hop on over the rest of the lava lakes of this basalt delta, and we are finally in the Nether Wastes biome. If you are luckier than I am when you spawn into the Nether for the first time, you'll probably end up in a biome that looks like this. These red netherrack blocks everywhere, veins of quartz ore in the walls, the floor, and the ceiling, and zombified piglins walking around. Zombie piglins are neutral creatures. They will not attack you unless you attack them, but if you attack one of them, even by mistake, they will all gang up on you, and every piglin within a wide radius will start bearing down on you looking to fight. So be very careful around them and don't hit them unless you absolutely have to. Now, looking around at the environment, you'll notice there's a lot of basalt and black stone around here. There's some glowstone dangling from the ceiling. The entire Nether is one large cavernous dimension. We have a couple of objectives here, the first of which is simply to explore. The Nether is a separate dimension from the overworld. It has its own resources, it has its own creatures, and it even has its own generated structures and biomes, so there's going to be some exciting stuff to find here. Now, before we get too far away from our Nether portal and its little cobblestone house there, I'm going to show you another technique that was popularized by Skizzleman. This is the Scumpus, and this is a really great way of navigating both in caves and in the Nether. In order to find your way back to where you started, you want to place pillars of material that is not native to the environment, like the cobblestone here, and place a torch pointing in the direction you want to return. A 2-high pillar is usually pretty visible from most places. The torch is going to light it up nicely, and if we place another one somewhere over here, if we wander off into the neighboring biomes, we'll at least be able to spot this and know that that's our way home. Looks like we can see a couple of ghasts floating around in that soul sand valley over there, the area with the brown terrain. There's one up there as well. Those are the fireball creatures I was talking about, so we want to be a little bit careful when they're around. If one of them does start shooting fireballs at you, though, the best thing you can do is return fire using a bow. And if you're lucky, they will drop some gunpowder and some ghast tears, which are an ingredient that can be used in potion brewing. But just be careful when you collect that stuff, because there's still lava everywhere. Now, the major objective while we are here in the Nether is going to be to look for a Nether fortress. Those are large structures made out of red bricks, and those are effectively the next step in the game's progression. But as we look around, we'll encounter a couple of other things. These piglins, the unzombified piglins, are just strolling around in the environment, and right now, this guy is neutral to me since I'm wearing gold armor. If I take my gold armor off, he's immediately going to become aggressive to me and start targeting me with that crossbow, so I need to put my gold armor on nice and quickly before he takes offense at that. The other things we'll grab while we're looking around are some of these resources. This soul sand that you can see around here is a vital resource for a couple of reasons. If you remember the skeleton spawner episode from yesterday, it's the block that can be used to turn water into a column of bubbles that can propel mobs or items upwards. So the soul sand is the block that looks like it has these kind of weird yelling faces in it. The block next to it is soul soil, which doesn't have quite as many uses, but there are a few things that we can use that for a little later. On the other side of the Nether Wastes biome here, there is a crimson forest, and we're going to step down into this very carefully because there are a few pitfalls and lava falls around, and we want to make sure that we stay well clear of those. And in the crimson forest, we also need to be aware of another enemy type called hoglins, which are going to be aggressive to the player. They are large, pig-like creatures, almost like wild boars, basically. The trick to surviving an encounter with hoglins in the early game when you are less geared up is to grab one of these. If you spot a blue fungus growing anywhere in this forest, this is a warped fungus, and the hoglins don't like these. So if we encounter one of these, we're going to place it down on the ground next to us, and at that point the hoglins should notice it and will get scared off, at least to a distance of 8 blocks or so you can strategically make your escape from them. But in the meantime, we get to take a look around at the foliage of this crimson forest, because this right here, while it resembles a tree, is actually a giant fungus. Taking down the trunk of one of these with an axe, much like you do with wood, will get you crimson stem, which can be broken down into planks. So while it is named something slightly different, these blocks behave the same way wood does. The glowing blocks up here in the canopy are shroom lights, and those are a really effective light source with a similar strength to lanterns. You'll find a few of these nestled in the canopy of most of these crimson fungi, so we can grab a few of those while we are here. But one of the other things that distinguishes these from trees is that the blocks of the canopy do not disappear. They don't start to decay once you've taken out the central trunk. That's because these are actually nether wart blocks, not leaves. And dangling down from those, we have some crimson vines, which are kind of the nether's equivalent of the cave vines you'll find in lush caves. In order to regrow any of these giant fungi, we need to look for these crimson fungi that are growing on this carpet of nylium. We can replant these anywhere on the nylium and grow them, but they have to be grown on the corresponding nylium. These warped fungi can be grown into trees, but they have to be grown on warped nylium, whereas this right here is crimson nylium. And while it is possible to return this to the overworld and start farming some of these giant fungi in the overworld, unfortunately we can't collect the Nylium right now because we don't have the Silk Touch enchantment. With Silk Touch, it will be possible to get hold of the Crimson Nylium, return with it to the overworld, and start farming these giant fungi there. Let's talk about some of the other resources we can see, like this enormous patch of glowstone. This is another block that it will be helpful to have Silk Touch with if you want to acquire it in its normal block form, because if we break a block like this now, we end up with glowstone dust, and breaking a couple of blocks of glowstone will yield enough glowstone dust that in a 2x2 we can craft it back into a block of glowstone. But we're kind of losing out here unless we use Silk Touch to harvest the entire block, or use Fortune to break it, which should yield enough dust to rebuild every block you mine. There are two ores that you can frequently find in the Nether. Those are Nether Quartz and Nether Gold. Quartz is safe to mine basically anywhere, and mining it will actually yield a lot of XP and a single nether quartz item. Once you've got a handful of quartz, you can turn 4 of it into a block of quartz, which is a really nice white building block. Once again, this is affected by fortune, so we might come back through with a fortune pickaxe. Now we know we can safely get to this area. The other ore is nether gold ore, and you need to be careful when mining this because the regular piglins that you see wandering around will not be happy with you if you mine the gold ore. They're quite possessive of it. They kind of see the gold ore as theirs. And as you can see, even though I'm wearing gold armor, I've angered this piglin by mining some in his presence. And that's one of the reasons I brought this sharpness sword with me, for a little protection against some of these angry piglins. Not all the piglins are carrying crossbows. Some of them are carrying swords and may even be wearing armor, so you need to be a little careful around them. If they see you attacking one of their own, then other piglins will become aggressive to you as well, but they're not quite as aggressive and single-minded as the zombified piglins are. You'll notice that piglins get a little freaked out by seeing the zombified piglins around though, and they will run away from zombified piglins. So if the regular piglins are aggressive to you, then running past a zombified piglin might change their minds. On the other hand, if you are stealthy enough to mine some more of this gold, or you brought a bit of gold with you from the overworld, we can craft these golden nuggets into gold ingots, and we can potentially use those to trade with the piglins. Or barter is the more accurate term, really. If you throw a gold ingot on the ground, a piglin will usually come running towards it to check it out, and after inspecting it for a moment or two, they'll throw you an item that they feel is worth the exchange. In this case, he's thrown me a bunch of blackstone, that building block that we can find in basalt deltas. It's also possible to right-click on a piglin to hand them a gold ingot, and if we take our gold leggings off so this guy becomes aggressive to us, yeah, he's going to get a little bit scared because there's a zombified piglin nearby. But if we right-click on this guy while he's running towards us, we can actually distract him with the gold ingot long enough to put on our gold leggings, and after that point, he should be fine trading with us, and he's cool with us after that. Okay, a ghast is fireballing me from a distance right here, and here's something else you can do if you're in a bit of a panic. You can actually punch the fireballs of ghasts away, and if you punch one towards a ghast and it hits it, you get an advancement for doing that. So I'm going to wait for this ghast to throw another fireball and see if I can throw it back in the ghast's direction. Sometimes, though, you'll notice the ghasts lose interest in you and they simply start floating around. So at that point, we just got to wait for a fireball to come our way and start deflecting them by rapidly clicking, and there we go! We got the return to sender advancement. And look at that. Just as we did that, we have stumbled upon our first Nether Fortress. Well, I think we're going to return and explore the Nether Fortress in a different episode, because I'm actually seeing a few different things. We might actually have found all of the nether biomes in this episode, because over here we have a warped forest, the blue counterpart to the red of the crimson forest. Of all the environments in the nether, warped forests are some of the more peaceful. The only things you will typically find spawning here are endermen, which are, as usual, neutral unless you look at them directly. There we go. We have found every biome in the nether. That is not something I was expecting to happen in this episode, but, well, here we are. Similar to the giant fungi of the Crimson Forest, you'll find these large warped fungi hanging around here as well. Their stems can also be broken down into a series of wood-like blocks. Instead of the nether warp blocks we already picked up, they have a cyan warped wart block, and you'll find the same shroom-like blocks growing in the canopy of these giant fungi as well. Since every world seed is different, unless you're playing on this world along with me, it's possible that you could spawn in any one of those 5 biomes: the Basalt Delta, the Nether Wastes, the Crimson Forest, the Warped Forest, or the Soul Sand Valley on your first visit to the Nether. So I think it's important to have seen each of these biomes so that you'll at least know a little about what to expect. So for now, I'm going to take the coordinates of where I'm standing at the present moment, just so I can be sure I can get back to this Nether Fortress, and I'm going to return home. But first, stopping by at the Warped Forest, we've run into one of those hoglins. As you can see, they're pretty large and they deal a lot of damage. They actually knock you up into the air when they attack you. So if you see one of these trundling towards you, which they will after a while, pop down one of those warped fungi and you'll notice the hoglin starts to run away. Aside from that, I recommend keeping them at a distance and taking them out with ranged weapons if possible. Shoot a couple of arrows from a powerful bow, and you should hopefully be able to deal with the hoglin before it reaches you and hits you. And I got lucky that the hoglin wasn't attacking me point blank there and it didn't do too much damage. I don't have great protection on this armor, but for now at least we came out of that encounter mostly unscathed. And now this is why it's important to make sure you use some navigational landmarks while you're traveling here, because I kind of got lost on my way out of this Crimson Forest, and with the ghasts shooting at you and everything, it can get a little disorienting here in the Nether. But I seem to remember making my way down to this Crimson Forest, so I'm going to make my way back up the side of this netherrack, and there you go. The Scumpus is waiting for me. Within range of that one, we spotted another cobblestone pillar, and if we head over the ridge here, we should spot another one, and from there, I'm pretty sure it is a straight shot back through the Basalt Delta to our portal right there. As with any trip to an unfamiliar place, it's always a good idea to bring lots of food and wood with you. That way, you can always craft some blocks if you need to do some bridging. You can always eat to keep your sprint up. And it looks like this magma cube here is blocking the way, so I'm gonna try and take it out with a bow. They're like slimes, but they are potentially a little more damaging. They will drop magma cream though, so I'll happily take some of that. That's going to be a useful ingredient for some future potion brewing. And somehow, despite having spawned in a very inhospitable biome, we have returned to our portal after a successful trip through the Nether. Now let's make our way back to the overworld where it is nighttime and it is raining, so I want to make for my house and sleep as soon as possible. But for now at least, we can use this barrel here to unpack everything we got from the Nether. So Netherrack is the terrain all around us. We ended up with some Crimson Stem and a Warped Stem, both of which can be used as a substitute for wood. Much like the other wood types, they have their own planks, stripped logs, signs, fences. They can be used to make the generic crafting tables and stuff like barrels and chests. The one thing you cannot use warped and crimson planks for is to craft boats. You simply can't do it. They will not have a boat recipe when you find them in a crafting interface. Anyway, from the warped and crimson forests, we also have these netherwort and warped wart blocks. We have one of each of the fungi. We got a magma block from the Basalt Delta. We didn't actually bring back any basalt, but we got some blackstone from bartering with that piglin. So that's a building block that we can explore a little bit. Now, blackstone is the Nether's equivalent of cobblestone, really. You can use it to craft furnaces and even stone tools. But aside from that, it can be turned into polished blackstone and from there into blackstone bricks, and it becomes more of a building block. Soul sand and soul soil are the two that we will find in soul sand valleys. You will also find a decent amount of bone blocks there if you are short on bone meal, if you don't have a skeleton spawner like the one we set up last time. We have shroomlights and weeping vines from the Crimson Forest. We didn't get any of the vines from the Warped Forest, but they will be growing up from the ground instead of dangling from the trees. We also got some crimson roots, which we probably got just by breaking a block underneath them. Unlike grass in the overworld, which breaks and potentially drops wheat seeds when you break the block underneath it, the crimson roots will just drop on their own. You don't need shears for them or anything, you can simply punch them again to obtain them, but they don't really do anything after that. They're really just there as a decorative thing. Then we have some glowstone dust. We can turn that back into a full block of glowstone if we want to. We got a ghast here as a drop from one of the ghasts that we killed, some magma cream from those magma cubes that we killed, and a block of quartz assembled from 4 nether quartz. Not to mention a little bit of gold, a little bit of pork, and some gunpowder from the ghasts as well. There's a lot of different stuff that comes from the Nether, some of which we don't have the opportunity to encounter until we go there for the first time. Stick around for the rest of the video where we're going to do a bit more enchanting. We're going to return to the Nether to explore, but most importantly, we're going to take a look at how to use the Nether for fast travel. Hey folks, welcome back. So I've been at the skeleton spawner for a while now. I've been just grinding away, getting experience and enchanting some books and equipment. So we haven't really made any progress on the armor and stuff here. This still has the same enchantments. The helmet is not enchanted yet. I got efficiency 4 on breaking 3 on a diamond axe. I figured that would do. And then I put efficiency 4 on breaking 3 on this pickaxe as well. I've just been looking for silk touch where possible. And if I can get it on a book, then that would be ideal. But in this case, I've finally managed to get it to pop up on an iron pickaxe, and what I'm hoping is that if I put 3 of our spare diamonds here to use as a diamond pickaxe, it's going to show up for a diamond pickaxe as well. Yep, Silk Touch is finally coming up for me. Okay, so whatever other enchantments this gets, we can combine it with this one. If it just had Silk Touch, we can combine the two and get Efficiency, Unbreaking, and Silk Touch all on one tool. The rest of my time, though, has not been entirely fruitless. I have a bunch of enchanted books here that I'm actually very keen on keeping, and these are the kind of enchantments that I keep every time they come up in the enchantment table. We've got a couple of unbreaking books here. Unbreaking applies to literally any tool, and there are some tools that you can't enchant on the enchanting table. For example, flint and steel has durability, so you can apply mending and unbreaking to it, but you can't directly enchant it in an enchantment table because there are basically no other options for that enchantment. It would have unbreaking every single time, and you can't get mending from an enchantment table anyway. It also frequently happens that items that have other enchantments, like in this case I want to keep Depth Strider and Blast Protection, but I didn't get Unbreaking, so it'll be helpful to combine Unbreaking and those boots in future. I also managed to get this book. This Feather Falling 4 book is going to be ideal to add to our boots as well, because Feather Falling is a boots-specific enchantment. It can't be applied to any of your other armor, but that reduces the amount of fall damage you take. This book here is what I like to call a choose-your-own-adventure book, because there are two very useful enchantments that apply to two very different tools. In this case, Sweeping Edge 3 would be the ideal thing to put on our sword, but Infinity is an enchantment for bows, which means you never run out of arrows. As long as you have one standard arrow in your inventory, you will always be able to fire that bow. So potentially we could make our bow really useful or our sword really useful with this book, and I haven't decided which yet. The other two over here are a regular efficiency 4, so we can boost one of our pickaxes to efficiency 5, and this one which has Looting 2, another sword enchantment that effectively works like Fortune, but for mob drops. The higher the level of looting we have, the more likely we are to get multiple drops from the mobs we kill. So we get more steak from cows, we get more bones from skeletons, and so on and so forth. I've also been combining all of these damaged bows that we get from the skeleton spawner just by shift-clicking them into a crafting table. Nice and quick to do, and you end up with a bunch of fully repaired bows that we could try enchanting ourselves if we want to. Right now, though, I am laser focused on getting the Silk Touch enchantment, because we don't have that one already, and it's going to unlock a whole bunch of other possibilities. So as soon as we have 30 levels, that's what I'm doing. Right, there we go, level 30, full send. Let's do this. We got efficiency 4, that's very good. If we combine these two, we have an efficiency 5 Silk Touch Unbreaking 3 pickaxe. We end up combining this for either 13 or 11 levels, so we're going to go with 11, and I'm going to call it Pixel Riffs. So now all those two need is mending to basically be the perfect diamond pickaxes. Now let's recombine these leggings, considering I just got some more from the skeleton spawner. Since we don't really need this efficiency 4 enchantment anymore, I'm going to add Looting 2 to the sword so that we get a few more drops from the mobs that we're fighting. I'm going to combine the Feather Falling and Unbreaking books to see if I can put those on my boots. Oh, I need one more level. Okay, we will definitely do that, because Depth Strider, Feather Falling, Unbreaking, and a Protection enchantment is a pretty decent set of boots. So we're going to pop those on, and I'm going to do a bit more bow enchanting before I choose between Sweeping Edge and Infinity. But for now, we can probably leave the spawner and head back to the Nether, with a quick pit stop in this cave where I'm going to continue to mine out more of the obsidian, which you'll notice is going a lot faster now that I have efficiency 5 on these pickaxes. Okay, I've gathered 20 obsidian. Back to the Nether. I'm still wearing my gold armor, but this time I can feel a little more confident in my safety, now that I know we've got bridges built around this basalt delta. So I brought all my diamond equipment with me, and you might be wondering, hey Pix, why didn't you just get the obsidian from all of the lava that's around here in the Nether, or why are you not making it safe for yourself walking around here? Well, the answer to that is pretty simple. It isn't possible to place a bucket of water in the Nether. The Nether is meant to be a very hot place, as you can tell from all of the magma and lava and fire around, and so a bucket of water placed here will pretty much instantly evaporate. You can still place buckets of other things, and it is possible to store water in a cauldron in the Nether, but that's mostly to support potion brewing. We'll get onto that a bit later. Anyway, we're going to come out to an otherwise inconsequential area of the Nether, and we're going to set up a second Nether portal. I've traveled quite far away from my starting portal, and this time we're going to set up a Nether portal without building the full frame around the outside, because if you just have 10 obsidian, if you find the process of mining obsidian kind of tedious, it is possible to make a Nether portal without the corner blocks and just create the frame out of 10 blocks of obsidian. As long as the center of the frame like this is complete, you should still be able to light this portal. I'm going to take the coordinates of this portal and we're going to step on through, because where we end up, we are actually above an ocean. That's kind of wild. There's even an ocean monument down there. I might have explored this ocean before, but it seems like we are nowhere near land right now, even though we didn't travel all that far in the Nether. Our coordinates here in the overworld are roughly 0 on the x-axis and 600 on the z-axis. And when I step back through to the Nether, you'll notice my coordinates here are roughly 0 on the x-axis and 75 on the z-axis. Now we're going to head back to my home portal, and we'll take a look at the coordinates for this one more time. That is -100, -44, so about 150 blocks away from that portal we just made. But back here in the overworld, we are over 800 blocks away from that portal we just made. In fact, we are 800 blocks on both the X and Z axis. So this is one of the most important things to know about the Nether. It is a dimension intended for fast travel. Traveling 1 block in the Nether is the equivalent of traveling 8 blocks in the overworld. So if you go 100 blocks in the Nether and make a portal, your portal will be 800 blocks away in the overworld from where you started. And obviously things continue along the same scale. If you travel 1,000 blocks in the Nether, you will travel 8,000 blocks in the overworld. And when locations in your overworld are far away, for example that desert that we traveled to, it is possible to create a portal there that you can travel through via the Nether, which admittedly is kind of dangerous, but it will take you a fraction of the travel time, and you can make safe tunnels throughout the Nether to prevent mobs from spawning and to prevent anything from getting in and trying to attack you. So that's another reason to come to this fiery and dangerous place, the opportunity to create fast travel points to different locations in the overworld. Now with a little of the wood I brought with me, I'm actually going to make a sign. I'm going to mark off that this is a portal to the ocean and that an ocean monument is nearby, because we can revisit that if we want to raid the ocean monument in future. So I've added a sign saying above ocean near monument to this portal. That way I'll remember what it is. And I think it's a good practice to get into, to label or decorate Nether portals so that you can remember which ones lead to which locations. So now we're back down here in this Crimson Forest. I wanted to show off Silk Touch since I just got the enchantment. If we end up breaking these blocks of Nylium that reverted to Netherrack earlier, you'll notice they drop as blocks of Nylium now. We now have 2 blocks of Crimson Nylium in our inventory, and that means we can take one of these Crimson Fungi back to the overworld and start growing it. If we mine the Quartz ore with our Silk Touch pickaxe, we actually get the ore blocks themselves to drop instead of dropping the Quartz items. We can always take these somewhere else, place them down in the world and fortune them later, but for now it can be quite a neat way of making sure that your inventory doesn't fill up with clutter. Because with fortune you'd get multiple pieces of quartz from these ore blocks, your inventory would fill up with quartz a lot faster than it would fill up with individual blocks of nether quartz ore. And later on, when you have the opportunity to get quartz in other ways, you can buy the blocks of quartz from villagers, or you can get individual quartz items from bartering with piglins. It may be of more interest to you to keep hold of the ore blocks and use them to build with instead of breaking them down for their precious resources. The same is true of nether gold ore, of course, although you might want to keep an eye out for any piglins, because you're still mining the block even if you're not breaking it down into gold nuggets, and they will still get angry at you if they spot you doing that. Back in the overworld though, where I find Silk Touch really becomes useful is in acquiring stuff like natural stone. Believe it or not, it's much more convenient getting hold of natural stone by simply digging it up out of the ground and having it not turn into cobblestone. That allows you to go and craft stone bricks and redstone components like redstone repeaters instantly, instead of having to wait for all of the cobblestone to smelt in a furnace. And since cobblestone can't be put in a blast furnace or a smoker, that process never gets any faster. You can also use Silk Touch on a pickaxe to acquire anything that you could normally break with a pickaxe, and that includes stuff like grass blocks. You can actually get the block of grass instead of it reverting into dirt like it does when you mine it with a tool that doesn't have Silk Touch. But I think that's where we'll wrap up today's episode. A successful first trip to the Nether, and even though our surroundings in the Nether are a little bit treacherous, we ended up surviving that trip and finding all of the other biomes. In future episodes, we will return to the Nether to check out that Nether fortress that we saw in the distance, and I'll teach you how to link portals in the overworld to portals in the Nether with pinpoint precision, allowing us to create a Nether hub that will serve as a fast travel map for our overworld. But that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixel Riffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.